me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc, where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
How he moved away from the ball and things like that, just by watching. And that's what I was getting at very early on. That's the missing piece. And if we could start, inoculating the kids with that understanding of, look, you don't have to have the ball to score. It's the person that makes the pass. And then then it's the easy opportunity to score the goal because you made the right pass, that kind of thing.
Welcome back to the Daily Parks and Rec Show Leadership Series. In this episode, we're joined by a true veteran of the profession and a familiar face to our community, Seve Ghose. We dive into a once-in-a-generation opportunity, the 2026 FIFA World Cup, coming to cities across the US, Canada, and Mexico, and what it means for Parks and Rec. From fan zones and viewing parties to youth engagement, community programming, and facility readiness, Seve breaks down how parks and recreation departments can turn a global event into lasting local impact. This conversation is about leadership, vision, and using recreation as a bridge between cultures, generations, and communities. Let's dive in.
All right, we are live again. First day of the week, Monday. We've got a very special guest who is, I think now you hold the record, Seve, for the most times you've come on the Daily Parks and Rec Show you've got so much value to give to the Parks and Rec community. So it's really enjoy having you on the show. How did your weekend go?
No, weekend was great, although it's been the coldest winter here in San Francisco. Typically June and July are the colder months, and November, December, we do get a lot of rain, but it's usually warm. But the temperature gauge has not crossed 50 degrees for the last week. So it's cold for here.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, we're getting a little cold temperatures here in New Orleans as well. It's typically never gets cold here, but we had some stuff I think just touched the 30s and then went right back up. But yeah, that's bad for us. All right, well, I have a couple of promos that I wanted to play. One of them is going to be our YPN, our new YPN show and time slot run by our two interns, Aiden and Michael Moreau. They moved the time slot to Thursday at 5 p.m. Turns out when you're trying to get college kids to attend anything, Friday's probably not the best day to host it. So we moved it to Thursdays at their request. And they actually made this promo. So as interns, we teach them how to do all the things that we do to run a media company, and building promos and editing promos is part of that internship. So by the way, if you are a college intern in broadcast journalism or marketing or even Parks and Rec, and you'd like to do an internship with the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we do have a couple more positions opened up. So definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn. So we'll play these two promos and we'll come back and start our conversation with Seve.
On the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we bring you the real stories of tomorrow's professionals, people shaping the future, one idea at a time. Meet the very first DPRS interns to officially host their own segment, Aiden Tierney and Michael Morrow. With curiosity, passion, and a fresh perspective, they're stepping into the spotlight to lead meaningful conversations with today's rising leaders. The Young Professionals Network takes you inside the journeys, challenges, and major wins of young individuals making their mark across industries. From first jobs to bold ventures, every story fuels growth, ambition, and innovation. Each episode brings real conversations, fresh perspectives, and impactful insights created to motivate the next generation of professionals. Whether you're just starting out, exploring new paths, or figuring out your next move. Tune in to the Young Professionals Network every Thursday at 5 p.m. only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show. Don't miss it, because your next big idea might be one story away. Welcome to DPRS Media Co., the first media company built for the people behind the Parks and Rec community. We don't just cover on Parks and Rec, we elevate it, we amplify it, we honor it. At the heart of everything we do is one mission: to serve the public servants, the professionals who design, maintain, and lead the parks that shape our communities. Under the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we produce 6 powerful platforms. Leadership in Parks and Rec, a spotlight on directors, superintendents, and visionaries shaping the future of public spaces. Facility maintenance, where the boots hit the ground, a deep dive into the systems, crews, and craftsmanship that keep our parks clean, safe, and beautiful. Young Professionals Network, shining a light on the next generation of Parks and Rec. Students, interns, and mentors sharing how we build a legacy together. Youth Sports Mastery, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. This series is for coaches, parents, and rec leaders working to make youth sports fun, fair, and meaningful again. The Rec Room, hosted by the passionate leaders of Henry County Parks and Rec. This show brings frontline energy and real-life stories from the field. And the weekly Parks and Rec Post, our official newsletter delivering stories, insights, and community wins every week. We are DPRS Media Co. LLC, a media company with a mission to uplift the professionals who serve every community, every park, every day.
All right. So, Seve, we've got some a little special episode today. Why don't you tell people what your idea was as far as our episode?
No, I thought, it'll be great to talk about the World Cup soccer that's coming to the U.S., Canada, and Mexico with 11 U.S. cities involved in 2026, June and July. And, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, and obviously Parks and Recreation professionals, as recreation professionals especially, should be excited, I think, and many of the cities that are hosting it, their Parks and Rec departments, I'm sure, are going gung-ho, moving forward with plans as to how to create fan zones, viewing sites, things like that, or other fun activities and youth tournaments and things around the World Cup. I've done some fun things in my career, and I'll be able to share some of those things around the World Cup, because the World Cup, again, is the one true World Cup. I always argue that, when the NBA happens and they call them world champions, I'm like, okay, well, they are world champions, probably the best players in the world, but they're not quite the world champions. Whereas the World Cup, 204 countries started the qualifying, and now we're at 42 teams that have already qualified, and then there'll be 6 more to qualify in the next 3 months, and we'll know by March all the 48 teams that are coming to the 3 countries. So
wow. What do you think are going to be like the top 5 teams?
Well, they're the usual top 5 teams. In fact, maybe you've read my mind. So the 5 teams are usually Argentina, Brazil from South America, Spain, and Germany from Europe, and then maybe an outlier in England. So those are the top 5 teams, I would say.
Yeah. Now, how's America doing? Are we anywhere in the runnings?
Well, we're always in the running. We're ranked in the top 20, so that's a good high ranking. But it's up and down, and those are some of the nuances I want to share about, like, where America could easily be a world champion, but there are a few things missing there in the equation. So, and we'll talk about those too. But no, America would do well and will do well, and they've been given an easy group, I think. So they should qualify out of the group that they've been given. So
yeah. I wonder, and I don't know if we can start this now, but what keeps America from, like in many things, like in the Olympics, where win all the gold medals or a ton of the gold medals, we always seem to be the country that has the most wins, but not in soccer. It seems like that's always something we're chasing.
Yeah, and I think I've heard different reasonings. Like it's a low-scoring game. You might have a 0-0 game at a World Cup or a big international tournament. But the fun thing is, there's a lot of play. So the nuances, like how did the players move around the field and create those opportunities, even though they might not score at the end, is what drives, me, like as a soccer fan and others, to come and watch those games. But I think we're not quite there yet as far as the population, the greater population, probably also because of television coverage. And it's slowly catching on. My hope is in the next 20 years, it does become, part and parcel of our culture in the U.S. That'll be awesome, if it does become that. But I think that's the one piece that's missing, is that even our kids, when they play soccer, even in the little league, the youth leagues or the adult leagues or college and so on, they're not playing on instinct. They're being coached, and that's the difference. Whereas in other countries, if you went to even a rich part of the neighborhood or the poor part of the neighborhood in any major city in the world, you'll see kids just having fun playing soccer. And I don't see that much in the U.S. That's typically the baseball, throwing the ball around, or throwing the football. the American version of football, with the
Yeah.
hand, but not the soccer ball. They're not kicking the soccer ball around as they do in
Yeah.
other countries. So that's that nuance and the natural piece that evolves with youth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in America, soccer has competing sports. So you've got football, baseball, basketball, and soccer, or as y'all
And
call it, football as
you
well.
might even add the hockey league too, the National Hockey League, because hockey
Yeah.
is pretty big too in North America at least.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got four very healthy competitors to soccer.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah. And actually, the history goes that U.S. has done pretty well, and they participated in the World Cup as way back in the 30s, and then in 1950 they had a surprise result where they beat England at the World Cup in Brazil in 1950, 1-0, and that was one of the biggest, still is one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. So,
Yeah.
and
What's the best we've ever done in the World Cup?
that is the best. In 1950, they got to the semifinals. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So the semifinals is just what, 4 teams left?
4 teams left. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, and that's all. So when does that start?
So that all starts on June 11th, Thursday. Yeah. And then it ends on Sunday, the 19th of July. The reason it's longer this year by 2.5 weeks or so, 2 weeks, is that instead of the usual 32 teams, now we have 48 teams. So it gives countries from around the world a better opportunity to showcase their talents. So we have a lot of first-time qualifiers this year in the World Cup. Lots.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what cities have they already kind of earmarked all the cities that are going to be hosting?
Yes. So there are 11. So there are 16 cities running the games in North America and Mexico, or including Mexico. And there are 2 cities in Canada, Toronto and Vancouver. And then in Mexico, there are 3 cities: Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey. And then the 11 cities in the U.S. I hope I get them right: Seattle, San Francisco, L.A., Dallas, Houston, Kansas City in the middle, then Atlanta, Miami, New Jersey, or New York, New Jersey, and Boston. So.
Oh, wow.
And sorry, Philadelphia. I shouldn't miss Philadelphia also. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Philly's a big city. That's all the big ones pretty much.
Yeah, no, it is pretty much the surprise is that cities like where soccer is big and has been played in the past at the highest level, Chicago is not there. Denver is not there. So
Denver was the other one I was thinking.
Bit of a surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised Chicago didn't get something up there because they're like 3rd biggest city in America.
Yeah, and they actually didn't even put a bid in. So that's kind of the surprise.
That is. All right. So what does this mean to Parks and Recreation? I mean, obviously there's going to be a big uptick because this is a once in a, how often does it come?
I would say
to
US
America?
will probably not get this again till probably 2050 or around that time again. So
You're kidding.
It's a once in a generation. Yeah.
Wow.
Because they've already planned out the next 2 World Cups, and so that's how it's laid out, because countries have to plan for stadiums and things like that. So.
Right. And how often do they do the World Cup? Is this like every
4 years, and it alternates around the Olympics. So the Olympics are also every 4 years, but they're in the middle of the World Cup series, so to speak. So
okay.
So they don't pile up the calendar with different, so many countries involved at the same time.
So once in a generation, starting in June. So the 2026. So what does this mean this is going to be a lot of just, I guess, drive a lot of interest in Parks and Rec towards the sport.
Absolutely. And I kind of take this as like the Winter Olympics in many cities, even though you might be in the South where, ice arenas and others might not be available. But when the Winter Olympics happen, you see an uptick in signups for learn to skate programs, figure skating, hockey, and things like that. So it's a similar kind of a setup with soccer. I'm putting money down that that's the same trend that we see when us hosting the World Cup. The numbers in youth soccer will be higher in the fall. I think it's a given. But also we have to do our work, and this is where we want to have this conversation: is what are Parks and Recreation departments doing around the country, or should do around the country to, get soccer, because soccer is by far the cheapest sport in the sense, all you need is a pair of soccer shoes and a ball, and maybe get some shin guards if you need to. I guess certain levels you might require shin guards. and you need a flat open space, and you can just kick the ball around and have fun. And in many communities, that's where it all begins, and that's where it should begin. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you say what should Parks and Recreation be doing, what are some of the activities that we can do to kind of prepare for this?
No, I think the biggest one is, again, to start from the very young, get kids into a building, or even better if you can do it outside in a setting, because now with really nice quality LCD screens, you can show them in daylight and still see it just as well, whether it's inside or outside. And so basically encourage viewing the game. So to finish the earlier thought, with 48 teams, now there are 104 games in those 6 weeks of the World Cup. So in the past, it used to be only 64 games. So now there are 40 more games to be played in the World Cup. So a lot more for the kids to take in and learn from. Oh, you saw how he moved around, or how he moved away from the ball and things like that. Just by watching. And that's what I was getting at very early on. That's the missing piece. And if we could start inoculating the kids with that understanding of, look, you don't have to have the ball to score. It's the person that makes the pass, and then then it's the easy opportunity to score the goal because you made the right pass, that kind of thing. So I think the opportunity exists for Parks and Rec departments to do viewing parties, or just show all the games, and the game times being home in the US, Canada, and Mexico. All the game times would be pretty compatible to our daily lifestyle too. It won't be at 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. when it's held in other countries, and so on. So they'll be around the morning, afternoon, and early evening. So
now what is San Francisco doing? Because that's kind of your backyard.
So we're actually working with what the local group called the Bay Area Host Committee, and we're planning a fan zone here on our property too. We're right in the heart of downtown. And San Francisco is hosting 6 of the games. I looked at the schedule. They're not the biggest of the big teams, but we'll still have fun because it's still the World Cup. So there'll be a lot of tourists and others here. Typically, countries bring about 20 to 30,000 fans, to a game. So you can imagine, with 6 teams, 6 games, 12 teams, we're hoping for over 200,000 visitors from other countries here. So that'll be kind of fun also.
Yeah. Now, have they decided where the finals are going to be?
Yeah, the final is in that, I guess the stadium used to be called Meadowlands. I think it's called MetLife Stadium now in New Jersey, New York, on the New Jersey side, because 88,000 seat. I think Dallas was in the running with AT&T Stadium. They're hosting actually more games than Met Stadium, but the final is in New York. Yeah, New Jersey, New York.
Okay. Yeah, that's going to be something. Okay, what else can we talk about with regards to this?
So to mention some of the things that besides doing the youth inducements to come and watch the games, but you won't get them to sit there for an hour and a half, 2 hours to watch a game. So what else do you do? And this is where I've worked with community partners and others to also have small clinics, or even run a preschool soccer tournament, with the smaller goals, and maybe even the back end of the gym, while the other half of the gym is being used for viewing the games, and so on. So you make it a community affair, so to speak. And then also, you introduce scythe shows, I call them. So you could find the best juggler of a soccer ball in town, have them put them on the stage in between the 2 games that you're there to view that day. Create some interest, and you want the kids to watch that juggler juggle the ball without putting it on the ground for, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you set limits for, and see how that goes, because it creates the buzz and the interest, And then obviously just talking about soccer and the history, and, to the maybe the teenagers and all that, because they could still be induced into playing soccer, because in 4 years of high school, you'll be amazed what somebody that's never played soccer, starts off as a freshman and goes up by senior year, they're fully embedded in soccer, and they're thinking differently and playing the game at the highest level. So all those opportunities exist, and I think you have to make it a community affair, So.
And if anybody's good at hosting these special events, it's definitely Parks and Rec. They are doing special year round.
So we're the best at putting together special events, absolutely. And I think, again, the World Cup is a great opportunity to bring that in. I think the other piece here is that you could make it a multi-generational thing too. We're a country of immigrants, so you can imagine many immigrants that have come here in the 60s, 70s, 80s, those grandpas, great grandpas, dads, they're still embedded with soccer in their brain, so to speak. They love soccer, and I'm sure they've missed it. You could incite some of that old feeling about, and also with the number of countries playing now, some of the smaller countries could be represented at the World Cup, which you might have emigrated from or come from, and so on. I mean, a good example, we've got teams like Curacao in the World Cup, Cape Verde in the World Cup, Haiti in the World Cup. Even with all the trouble going on in Haiti, that's a credit to them that they were able to put their team together and qualify for the World Cup. So these are amazing things. You have small countries like Jordan qualify for the World Cup for the first time. You've got Uzbekistan, from the old Soviet breakup of the republics. Now they're on their own and they've qualified for the World Cup for the first time. So these are amazing stories that are great stories in itself. And so you could be an immigrant or from those countries, and now it's exciting for you to see your country represented in the World Cup, because the World Cup is the ultimate. So
yeah, I actually had a guest from Haiti on the show. I think he was out in Boston. He was started out with
yeah, he's a Parks and Rec director in one of the towns there.
Yeah, and he started with what do you call the I know they're going to kill me for this. It's not a greenhouse. It's a botanical garden.
Yeah.
He had like an award-winning botanical garden. And then a close friend of mine, Dr. Jean Montez, he is the youth orchestra director here in New Orleans. Those are my two Haitian connections.
Awesome.
But it's really good that they're having their team represented here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure and especially for a small country like that, soccer might not be also the highest level sport, and for them to qualify is amazing. And then Curacao is the big one, the little island off the coast of Venezuela, with 600,000 people or something like that qualified for the World Cup, and so
wow.
What they tapped into was the Dutch community, which has immigrants, or Holland has immigrants from Curacao living there. So they tapped into the talent that's playing in the leagues in Holland and Netherlands, and brought them back to say, well, maybe you're not quite at the highest level, because Netherlands plays at the highest level, but you could play just a slightly below. Not discounting their talent, obviously, but then you represent Curacao, and lo and behold, they've qualified for the World Cup. So
yeah. Now I'm showing my ignorance here, but I'm assuming this is all male soccer. Is there a female soccer version of this that goes on? Or?
Yeah, and the women's soccer is big too, as you know. A couple of years ago, it was played in New Zealand, Australia. And I believe, I think the U.S. were the winners there. So, the Women's World Cup is also gaining in popularity and all that, and especially in the Bay Area too. I mean, to talk about, we also actually have the Bay FC, which is the women's team in the Women's National Soccer League, and so it's very much a highest level depending on the community you live in. I mean, I can talk to my old community in Louisville. There's a men's team, but they play in the USL, which is the one level below the MLS. But the women's team plays in the top level, so the women's team has a bigger following in a city like Louisville, as an example. And then you have cities like
Jordan's probably gonna. So we produce. Her Sports does the athletes commute, and our host is Jordan Ziff, and she was a professional soccer player, played for Brazil, was her final destination.
Okay.
And now she's creating media for female pro athletes, and she goes behind the scenes, and it's a really good show. So we're actually helping to produce that. And so she's probably going to shoot me for not knowing more about soccer. I think she's helped educate me more about it. All right. So anything else that Parks and Rec that you're doing or that they can do to try to raise awareness, viewing parties, stuff like that?
Yeah, so talking about the community piece, also the things to induce is working with your other community partners. So I've worked with the police department to have a radar gun that I could borrow from the police cars or the police department.
Oh, yeah.
And you put it out there, and you put up a makeshift soccer goal, and you measure the power of, or the speed of the kids kicking the soccer ball. So you have to, again, create that interest. And then the best part about all what Parks and Rec could do that we used as a kickstart is a soccer tournament or a soccer league. And we did that in 2006 for the 2006 World Cup. We were actually one of the first fan zones in the U.S. in Portland, Oregon. And, we kicked it off as what we called at that time the Refugee Soccer League. I believe it's still going on because Portland at that time was accepting a lot of refugees from other countries around the 2004 through 6 time frame. And that tournament has grown, leaps and bounds exponentially. And we have a nice soccer complex with about 6 fields where you can do a large tournament, over the course of a couple of weeks and so on. And what I've also done and what other cities could do is run a adult soccer tournament, and to keep the interest going on the men's and women's sides, make it a co-ed co-rec soccer tournament, where you basically create, say, a team that signs up. You might assign them to be Haiti, and the other team might be assigned to be England. And so if Haiti and England play on the World Cup schedule, your Haiti and England locally also plays on the same day on a similar schedule. So we did that kind of a tournament in Louisville, Kentucky, and actually in 2018, France won the World Cup in 2018, but locally Egypt, the team that was assigned as Egypt in our local tournament, won the World Cup locally in Louisville. So you can do fun things like that because it again brings people out of the woodwork, and they show national pride, or past where they came from pride, so to speak, and it's awesome to see that. And a little bit of that flag waving, plus you make it a cultural event. You have the foods from all these countries, because food always attracts people, as you know. So you try to invite, especially in a city like San Francisco, we're definitely going to have probably food from all the 48 countries that are involved, because it's a very cosmopolitan place, as you know. And depending on which city you're in, I hope you invite the food trucks into your local event too, because that's, again, what creates that interest and the buzz. So.
Yeah, I'm so glad the food trucks have kind of come on the scene and really start being incorporated into Parks and Rec. That way we have more than just hot dogs and hamburgers and chips. Now we've got like all this unbelievable cuisine that they can pack into these food trucks and just kind of pull up. And now you've got like full-on restaurants, quality food.
No, absolutely. And you're in a place like New Orleans, I mean, I'm sure you're used to the smells and the aromas and the taste of the different foods, So
we love our food trucks. There's typically outside of every late night bar or jazz music venue or whatever, there's 1 or 2 food trucks cooking something, and they're everywhere. And so that's a big part of our food scene here, is the food trucks and the food vendors. Sometimes it's just a tent. It'll clear up. There we go.
Yeah, I think you froze up.
I think I got us back here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all
we
good.
both froze up.
And then the other thing is some interesting facts to share about the World Cup that I get excited about. As you can tell, I'm very excited about this soccer thing, and it's going to be fun. Is that the teams that are coming? It's funny that the Soccer World Cup has been played since 1930, and the first 2 winners were Uruguay, which is a small country. So a small country of about 5 million people produces some of the greatest soccer players, even to the modern day. And it's always fascinated me how a small country like that could produce some of the best soccer players and coaches around the world. And so that's a great thing. They won the first 2 World Cups, or sorry, the first 2 of the 3 World Cups. Italy won in 34 and 38. I'm just reading off the list here. Uruguay won in 1950, and that was the big surprise, where U.S. got to the semifinals. Brazil lost to Uruguay in the final in 1950 in Maracana Stadium in Rio, which at that time hosted close to 180,000 people in the stadium.
Wow.
So it was a big happening, and it was like the saddest day in Brazil, and it's still talked about by the generation that was there, as because once your national team loses, especially if you're a powerhouse, it's a big loss, So.
Yeah.
So then you look at Germany after the war, they came back and won in 54. Brazil with Pelé as a 17-year-old won in 1958 and 62. England won at home in 1966. And then Brazil won in Mexico City in 1970. And talking about Mexico City, actually, this is the 3rd World Cup they're hosting. So they hosted in 1970, 1986, and then now to 2026. So that's a huge honor for Mexico as a country to also be, hosting the World Cup 3 times. No country has ever done that. So
now how is Mexico doing in the ranking right now for this upcoming World Cup?
Yeah, they do not have a very strong team right now, but hopefully, it's amazing what happens during tournaments. You all come together, and you're playing for national pride. So, things seem to gel. I mean, the best example of that story I can use is from the last World Cup in 22 in Qatar. Morocco became the first African country to get to a semifinals. So that's amazing that a small country like Morocco can also get there. So again, you gel, you play well, and you score a few goals, and you're through to the next round, so to speak. And the other fact to share is that the last 5 World Cups, we've seen 5 different countries winning the World Cup. So that's changing again, and that speaks to the adding of the 16 more teams to 48 teams now in the World Cup. So to answer your earlier question about who are the favorites, yeah, the typical big fives are the favorites, but anything could happen at this World Cup. So again, I'm kind of excited that hopefully some smaller country gets to the final this time. So
yeah, fantastic. Well, we're kind of at the halfway point. Let me go ahead and play a couple of our promos. One of the promos we made is for strategic partnership. So what is strategic partnership? It's vendors that serve the Parks and Rec community that want to help us co-create content for the Parks and Rec industry, for the Parks and Rec community. And then we can kind of lift your brand up as well. So we are still looking for strategic partners to help us co-create DPRS Media Company and the Daily Parks and Rec Show. So if that's something you're interested in, you're a national brand and you'd like to help us lift this thing and create something that looks like an ESPN for sports, we want to create Daily Parks and Rec Show for the Parks and Rec industry, our first great media company for this industry. All right, so I'm going to play a promo on that, and then I'm also going to promote our facilities maintenance show, which we're still building on. It's our 10:30 a.m. show, all about facilities maintenance. So we'll play those two and come back and finish our conversation with Seve.
Are you a vendor, brand, or service provider ready to connect with the heartbeat of local communities? At DPRS Media Co., we tell the stories shaping parks and recreation across America. Through podcasts, live streams, videos, and newsletters, we reach frontline leaders, city directors, and decision makers every single week. From youth sports and facilities to programming and policy, our audience is your audience. Sponsoring or partnering with DPRS Media Co. puts your brand in front of the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. Launching a new product, growing your presence in public spaces, targeting cities, counties, or departments, DPRS is your trusted media partner. Whether you're in software, turf, aquatics, robotics, smart cities, or special events, partnering with DPRS puts your brand in the story. With commercials, interviews, social campaigns, newsletters, and live shows, we're your media team. Partner with us and grow your impact in the $200 billion parks and rec industry. DPRS Media Co. Stories that move parks and rec forward. Your audience is here. Let's meet them. Behind every thriving park, every safe playground, every event-ready field, there's a team working before sunrise and long after sunset. This is Facility Maintenance, the only show created for and by the unsung heroes of parks and recreation. Brought to you by DPRS Media Co., where real work gets real recognition. From restrooms to rec centers, HVAC to turf tech, we go beyond the job site into the heart of operations that keep our communities moving. Our mission? To elevate maintenance teams through stories, solutions, and shared experience. Our vision? A world where every facility crew is seen, valued, and fully supported. Each episode features operators, innovators, and leaders, sharing tools, tech, and tactics that make the impossible look easy. Facility maintenance isn't just a job, it's purpose, it's passion, and now it's a show. Facility Maintenance, where tools meet purpose, where work becomes legacy.
All right, since we just saw the facilities maintenance, let's talk about maybe the facilities of soccer complex and stuff like that. What does that entail?
No, that's perfect, Craig. No, I was going to bring up, the stadiums vary in size from the one in Toronto, say at about 45,000, to the AT&T Stadium in Dallas that hosts about 102,000 or so. That's what they're making it available for soccer. And then the best part of this is that technology is playing a huge role in this year's World Cup for the first time. They've tried different types of turf. So what happened in the past is, like, say, if you have I'm thinking, like, I'll just pick a country, Germany, and they're hosting the World Cup. So when they play the game at the stadium in Berlin, the grass might have been slightly different, say, than playing the game in Hamburg. So the two teams
Mhm.
that played the game in Hamburg, now one of them qualifies to play in Berlin. They might experience a different bounce on the ball and all that. So all of those nuances have been kind of figured out as best as possible. So University of Tennessee, I believe at Knoxville, was entrusted with creating a turf that would be laid for all 16 cities, so that there'll be no question as to how the ball bounces and so on. So again, this is a huge improvement in the expectations, because you're talking about the highest of the highest level of players that are playing at this level,
Mhm.
and they play in some of the best club teams and leagues around the country, around the world, sorry. And so they expect that same motion on the ball, same bounce on the ball when they go to a different city, because the teams are moving around to different cities to play their games. So
Yeah.
this is a huge improvement on facilities, and then obviously the size of the field was a challenge, because a lot of the American stadiums are a little narrower, made for the American football. And so a lot of the seats had to be removed, and that's why the capacities went down a little bit in some stadiums and then went
Mhm.
up in some, depending
Yeah.
on the availability. So yes, facility management is a big piece. And typical soccer field is about 108 yards by about 75 to 80 yards,
Mhm.
and an American football field's a little narrower than that. So
Now they're playing on real natural grass, aren't
yes,
they? It's not
yes,
they don't allow any type of like
no.
synthetic grass or anything like that.
Right, and that's been a debate for many years, about playing at soccer in many other countries. Uh, yes, some of the club teams around the country in different leagues, they do play on artificial turf, but when it comes to the national team, it has to be by FIFA rules, which is the International
Mhm.
Federation of Football Associations rules. It has to be played on natural grass, and especially the World Cup and all other major tournaments have to be played on natural grass. And that's the
Mhm.
dilemma, how do we make that happen? So I'm glad to see that University of Tennessee, Knoxville, took on this task and have created the turf. That's actually secretly being stored in different parts of the country, so that they'll be moved around quickly, into place.
Yeah.
So it'll be amazing to see that, and I'm sure the players are going to appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I was speaking with someone about they have a big they have a degree in agronomy, I think it's called, the
Yep.
study of grass.
Yep. Mhm. Yep.
And he prefers the natural grass, but then, you know, obviously you can't play as much on the field than if you have the
Right.
synthetic.
Right.
And so even though he personally prefers it, he's managing a huge like 20 field complex that he was showing me, and it's all synthetic grass.
Yep.
Um, but he says it's a lot he says it's a lot healthier for the kids or something to play on the natural stuff. I'm sure he's got all his reasons. There's probably a big debate. What is your opinion on
Oh boy.
pros and cons of each?
You're going to put me on the spot there. So, no, as you know, I think I've talked about this. I've coached soccer to a pretty high level. I coached the Iowa State University women's soccer team the first 2 years they were varsity.
Mhm.
And, I could make a living off of it. So I had to, find other ways of working in Parks and Rec. But um, having played and coached on natural grass and artificial turf, by the way, has come, leaps and bounds in improving the quality and the bounce and to simulate as close to the real grass as possible. The challenge with artificial turf about 5 to 10 years ago was the infill. The infill was the culprit that created some of those, the conversations that, oh, it's unsafe, you shouldn't be playing on that stuff. It's bad for you, bad for your systems, bad for asthma and other issues. Sure enough, there were some companies out there that produced the infill that was very inferior quality, meaning it had other elements in it that could cause some of the issues that people are bringing up. But now, if you look at it, a lot of the infill is, much cleaner, actually very clean. And then AstroTurf has gotten back in the business, not to put a company name out there, but sorry, I am, is that
Yeah.
improved the quality so much that the old style AstroTurf with the padding and so on, you do not require the infill. The quality is so high that it simulates the real bounce of a natural grass as pretty close to, I would say, maybe a 9 out of 10 compared to natural grass. That AstroTurf has figured it out, and other companies are following suit. And
Mm.
then just to mention, the city where all this is produced is Dalton, Georgia. If you ever drive through Dalton, Georgia, just north of Atlanta, that's where all this turf is made. There's only about three or
Wow.
four factories. They just put different labels on it depending on the specs that each company has. but it's all made in Dalton, Georgia. And I've visited the factories there because they do a tour if you install AstroTurf or Field Turf, depending on what brand you go with. You get to visit the factories for free, and they give you a tour, and you get to learn more about the practices they have and so on.
So, and I know this is probably just an opinion, but out of if you had to choose between the two, which would you prefer as a coach and former soccer player?
No, I would definitely go with natural grass, and especially Bermuda grass. So, because Bermuda grass has that spongy feel, it's got that, I love the carpet feel of Bermuda grass,
Yeah.
And, I used to play soccer. I was on the right wing, just being tripped so many times, because I was fast and I could get the ball to the side. So, somebody would come to the side and trip me over, but then landing and not finding any scratches on my sides and all of that. Actually, I used to find scratches more from bruises from my elbows on the side of my body, but no scratches on the body when I fell on the grass. So that was kind of a nice thing. And it always stayed in my head that Bermuda grass lends itself pretty well if it's manicured pretty well too.
Yeah. Now, you had said infill. I'm not familiar with that term. Is that kind of the kind of rubbery stuff that they kind of drop in when they have a hole and stuff, rake it in?
Yes. And what was happening in the early 2000s was the rubbery infill was basically, just to be blunt, used tires, car tires, or vehicle tires. And so obviously people didn't realize there's metallic pieces in radial tires and all that. So, or at least it used to be in those days. Tire technology has also improved now, and obviously they do not use tires anymore. The infill is pure rubber nowadays, And and if you're a goalie in those days, if you're diving a lot, spending more time close to the surface of the field, for sure you're inhaling some of those parts. And so it did cause a few cases of people picking up certain ailments and things like that. But that case is, I would say, pretty close to zero. To finish off the conversation on what the safety standards are, it is very safe to have infill. But again, what I was suggesting was AstroTurf has come up with a surface that's as close to the real grass as possible related to bounce and feel.
Well, now what do we do with our old tires?
Well,
you can't use them for soccer fields anymore.
No, but what they're doing in some cities, I've read, actually, this is a good Parks and Rec or a city conversation, because people are getting clever around the world. What they're doing is making the soundproof walls next to highways. If your neighborhood is, so they're making what do you call 2x4s, I guess, out of the rubber by treating it with different chemicals or other things, and using them as soundboards to dampen the sound for the neighborhood, when they're right by highways and so on. And you can color it any way, any color you like and all that. So it's kind of a nice thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's always something. Anytime you can always come up with some way to repurpose or use something. All right. Anything else on soccer?
Well, yeah, just to kind of finish the thought on soccer, because I know it's it is the most popular sport in the world. Even at the youth level, I think even in the U.S., it's shown that it is the #1 sport request or planned by Parks and Rec departments or even private clubs and so on. Is how do you make it more fun and enjoyable? And and I'm not preaching or anything here, but I'm just suggesting, having coached and refereed soccer games, I think sometimes, maybe keep the parents on one side and keep the coach and the kids on the team on one side. Don't put them on the same side, because you're going to have problems. Because, it's just a human nature thing. As a dad or a mom, you're going to be pushing for your child. Why is my child sitting on the bench and all that? It's about a team sport. So things happen. And this is where I think you have to let the coaches be the coaches and let them, coach the team. And then also leave the referees alone, because they're trying their best, because we're all human. We make mistakes. There is no VAR, which is the video assisted replay that they use in many of the leagues around the world now, which will be used in the World Cup, by the way, that the referees do make mistakes when they do not have access to VAR, to make second calls, so to speak, So just give them the room. Everybody makes mistakes, and so I think the idea is to, again, let the kids be kids, and let them evolve. That's my message. So.
Yeah, maybe some of those Optimus robots coming out of Austin will be the new refs, and you can't really yell at them.
Sure, yeah. No, as long as they keep up with the speed, because the speed is amazing nowadays in world soccer. So as long as the robots keep moving,
Oh man, they'll be able to out sprint the fastest sprinter, I think, before long.
Yeah,
Um,
because a
it's
typical
crazy.
soccer player, especially a midfield player, I mean, they're running 12 to 14 miles a game. So,
Wow.
and this keep in mind, soccer has no timeouts. So when you talk about football, basketball, other sports, there are timeouts, or you go sit on the bench for a few when somebody else comes in. In soccer, you're allowed five subs nowadays, total. But you're playing basically 45 minutes, then you sit for 15, and then you come back for the other 45, and then you might have extra time. If there's a tie game in a World Cup, especially, you're playing another two 15-minute halves, and then it goes to penalty kicks and so on. So yeah, it's a very you have to be totally fit, and have that high level of stamina to endure.
Yeah.
And especially imagine playing in Dallas or Houston. Well, Dallas is lucky because it's an indoor stadium, but Houston will be outdoor. It's going to be 97 degrees and 97% humidity this coming summer. So I can imagine the
Wow.
teams are going to be struggling a little, especially if it's a Northern European team playing in that stadium at that time. So.
Oh, they're going to be sweating it out in Houston. It's
Yep.
hot and humid, just like where I'm at. But
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Well, so what can you tell us about what it's like to coach soccer? Because you coached at a pretty high level.
Yeah, soccer coaching. I think I shared my philosophy a little bit earlier, and also, the best story I can share is that I coached a U12 girls soccer team in Springfield, Oregon, um, and it came out of mainly the staff's kids. The staff that were in our department, the Willamette Lane Park and Recreation District. They said, "Well, Seve, we need some help with our kids. They want to play soccer. Can you help us?" And I go, "Well, come to think of it, I love soccer. I've coached to a high level. I can help." So we ended up collecting 15 kids. 9 had never played soccer. 6 had played some kind of rec soccer here and there, and we won the league 2 years in a row. And so it was because. So what I'm saying is, let the kids be kids, but I also found the weaknesses and the strengths, and let them be themselves. Meaning they made mistakes. We lost the first couple of games, but then over time we became unbeatable because the kids listened and they actually followed through. It was, as a coach for a long time, soccer person, it was beautiful to watch from the beginning of the play, from the goalie as the ball gets to the other end and we score a goal or try to score a goal. Just that whole happening was so beautiful for me to watch. So I didn't have to even raise my voice once on the sidelines or let people, the players, know what to do or what not to do. I did that on the side. So I'm very low key. Let the players be and that's one thing about coaching. If you look at all other sports too, from hockey to basketball to football, some of the best coaches are the ones that are not ranting and raving on the sidelines. And in soccer, you have a few that do jump around all over the place and they're yelling, but the message doesn't get through because in that sound of 80,000 fans in the stadium, coach's voice might be heard at this level, not at the highest level. So let the players
Right.
be the players, let them enjoy.
Yeah. Any other secrets as kind of putting together a good team and kind of then building that team?
Yeah. So in soccer, yeah, what I've done, that's a good question. You should find a good goalie because goalies are hard to find. And at the youth level, and especially at the youth level, I know you're laughing because none of the youth want to be goalies. They all want to score goals. So they always want to be forwards. So I've always encouraged building at least one goalie, if not a 1.5, like another player that also has some level of interest in being a goalie. And then starting from defense, because soccer begins from defense. If you do not have a good defense, you're not going to have a strong soccer team. So if you look at most of the national teams nowadays, the ones that are really up there are doing well are the ones with the strongest defense, because it's easy to find the mentality and the players to score goals, but it's hard to find players that can defend.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's where I would start, and I've always started that way, and then the rest just happen naturally as you progress on. So.
Yeah. And then you've got those guys. So maybe describe for those that not as familiar with soccer. So imagine you're talking to people that know nothing about soccer. And so this is going to be a huge education for them. So how is the team made up? You've got obviously a goalie on each end. You've got the scorers. You've got the defenders. You kind of give us a 101 soccer.
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah. So soccer is usually played, so not including the goalie, there are 10 other players. And so typically at the international level, or even at the highest of the club level, you play a system that's 4-3-3. So there are 4 defenders, 3 midfielders who kind of manage the game for the whole team, whether passing back or passing forward. And then you have 3 forwards. But the idea is also that anybody can move up and down. And this idea was invented by a famous coach in Holland, Last name is Michels, Michels, and he invented this idea that because pre-1968, 1970, soccer was played very positionally, meaning if I was a defender, I was told not to get out of my half, or even halfway or a quarter of the way off the field, But after 1970, all that evolved into what they call total soccer, meaning every player should be able to play and be interchangeable to any position. So the idea is that you all move forward together, but you also defend together. Even though you have 4 designated defenders, 3 midfielders, and 3 forwards. That doesn't mean that only the forwards score the goals, because if you look at most of the top leagues nowadays, many of the midfielders and defenders are scoring goals because of that opportunity, because they all move with the ball, they also defend with the ball, So
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to watch too. And the biggest thing that's changed over the years is fitness and stamina and the size and the speed. I mean, it's just amazing what that has done. In fact, sometimes if you look at camera persons, when they're trying to pan it, on TV, they're having a hard time because the ball is moving so fast nowadays.
So fast. Yeah. All right. Now, what are the different cards? I see like red cards, yellow cards. How do you get one of those? What do those mean?
Yeah. So the yellow card is the basically first warning. And if you get a second yellow, then it's an automatic red. And the red card is basically dismissal from the game, whether it happens in the first minute or the 89th minute or 90th minute, doesn't matter. The referee has the right, calls out a red card when you have 2 yellows, or it's a very flagrant foul. So you can get a red card directly anytime during the game if you have, in soccer, you're not allowed to have your studs from the bottom of the shoe up against somebody's shin or body, because that's a straight red card. And if that happens rarely, but it does happen. And when that happens, you're automatically thrown out. And then you don't get to sub. So your team plays 1 person down. So you're playing with 10 players. So that's that, again, nuance. But here's the one fact out of soccer. A team that usually loses a player and plays with 10, they might end up losing about 50-50. But the thing is, they actually play better soccer with the 10 players than with 11.
They have to.
Actually, the data shows that. It's very nuanced, but it's kind of interesting. So.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so you can lose. So you get a red card. Now your team's down a man.
Yeah, and not just that. Especially at the World Cup, say if you get a red card in the first game, you're guaranteed 3 games. You're going to miss the next 2 games. So you actually technically missed 3 games.
Wow.
So their punishments for being a rough player, I guess, if you want to call it. It's kind of like hockey. So if you're watching hockey, there's those, the persons that are basically paid to hit the other player, or start a fight and so on. In soccer, we had that till about the 70s. That was a common thing where you had I don't want to use the word thug, but I guess there's no other way to describe it. They were put in to basically cause trouble or cause injury or harm, because if you had one less player, on either side, and usually your job was to take out the best player on the other team, and so, or get them off the field, injured or something like that. And then you had opportunity to win, So again, not to go there because that doesn't happen anymore, but up to the 70s, it was very rough and tough. People used to get tackled quite a bit. Now you barely do a push, and you've seen what I call the flop. You might have heard about people diving on purpose. So like I might be running down and, somebody barely touches me or pulls my shirt, and I take a fake tumble, or a tumble, but I pretend like it's the end of the world. I'm dying, and then the referee, promptly gives the yellow card to the other player, even though he might not have touched me, so that happens too. So, there are lots of these nuances, and that's why, going back to the refereeing bit, referees have to be very clear and clever about noticing these things. And that's why they do a lot of running themselves too, because they have to keep up with the pace of play.
Yeah. All right. So now maybe give us some names. Who is your favorite players? Who's your favorite goalie? Who's your favorite defenders? Who are your favorite players and why?
Well, you must be reading my mind. So I wrote my, my favorite 12 players of the last, say, 50, 60 years, so because as a kid, I followed soccer too, not to date myself, but, so some of the favorites that I wrote down. So I'll go back into the 50s and 60s. One of my favorites, watching old films and so on, I never got to see him on TV, obviously, is a gentleman named Puskás, Puskas, from Hungary. This is when Hungary was the top team. They actually reached the final of the '54 World Cup in Switzerland. They lost to Germany. He's one of the considered one of the all-time greats. There was an Argentinian gentleman, but he took a Spanish citizenship. His name is Alfredo de Stefano, and he's Argentinian, but he also became a great player for Real Madrid and so on, which is one of the top clubs in the world. Then obviously Pelé, from Brazil, and that's not his real name. That's just the one-word name that many Brazilians go by. Then you have Johan Cruyff from Holland. He's the gentleman that perfected this total football. His idea was that you all defend, but you also all try to score goals. So. And then you have Franz Beckenbauer from Germany. He invented the best defense, I guess. Then you have Michel Platini from France. He kind of invented that total football. He could be a defender, but he could also be a scorer. Then you have Diego Maradona, who is by far my favorite player of all time. Sorry, I had to knock on the door quick.
Oh, that's okay. It's not that long.
Diego Maradona is my favorite. He's from Argentina. I believe that he invented soccer in the real sense that he could do a little bit of everything. And what the ball could do when he had it in his possession was amazing. It basically stuck to his feet. Then you have similarly, like a Diego Maradona, you have Zinedine Zidane from France. He's also all-time great. You have the Ronaldo from Brazil, who is on my list as all-time great. Lionel Messi, who's still playing. He won the MLS Cup this last weekend playing for Miami. Now that he's kind of semi-retired, he's earning his big dollars with Miami, but still playing for Argentina at the highest level. He's the captain of Argentina. He's also on the list. Then there's the other Ronaldo from Portugal, who is on my list of greatest players. He's 40 years old, but he's still playing highest level soccer. He's the captain of Portugal. You'll see him at the World Cup. And then you might ask, there's no goalie on that list. So the one goalie that's, I feel, the greatest goalie, he invented the really awesome goalkeeping skills and all that, is Lev Yashin from the old Soviet teams, of Russian origin, Lev Yashin. So those are my 12 greatest players that I can think of that I would put my money on to be on any team, So.
Fantastic. Now, how about coaches? Who's the greatest coaches?
Well, I think I touched on the name. So the one coach was Rinus Michels from Holland. And actually, again, it's a very interesting fact that Netherlands, with about 8 or 9 million people, they produce some of the best soccer players and some of the best coaches. So actually, I'm a big fan of any coach that's from Holland or Netherlands. They, I believe, have produced usually the best coaches. But the luckiest coach that's been around in the modern game is Zinedine Zidane. After he got done playing, he took over the Real Madrid soccer club in Spain, and he won 3 straight European championships for a club, which is unheard of in the modern game. So that's a huge plus. So I'm a big admirer of his. So.
Yeah. All right. So now give us some soccer homework that we can take home with us. What homework do you have for us?
Well, the homework is, I think, at any level or at some level, you should take advantage of the World Cup soccer happening from June 11th through July 19th. And I think it's in the heart of the summer, high programming season. Soccer is being played in your fields. Why not take advantage of it and really get into it and, put up the flags of the 48 countries that are out there. Make it like, your driveway into your soccer complex parking lot. Just create some buzz and some excitement, and things like that. And then obviously on the game days, do those fun things, get the local person that, does juggling the soccer ball, make him or her the prize person on the field, before a big local soccer league game, make that person be the showcase of the thing, or at the halftime, do a halftime show and things like that. So take advantage of this opportunity because, again, it won't be back in the U.S. for probably about 25 to 30 years, So.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Well, thank you so much. For any closing remarks before we wrap up the show?
Well, I know you typically ask me for the next guest on your show, a question. So my question would be, I would like to hear from the next guest if they are doing anything in their city or town related to the World Cup soccer.
Well, actually, hold on. I have a question for you from our previous guest.
Oh, okay.
This comes from Jonelle Bailey over in Bartlett, Illinois, Sycamore. About an hour from Chicago. So her question for you is, what is the most interesting customer service fail or story?
Oh, fail. Oh, that's a tough one, in that sense. Oh boy, I would say it's usually the choice of software. So many Parks and Rec departments pick a software. So in my
Uh-huh.
experience, not all softwares have done the job that they were envisioned to do, or sometimes what the salespeople told us they could do, or it could do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I would say the recreation software has been a big disappointment in my career at a couple of places. So it's not
Yeah.
anybody's fault. It's just that that was the piece that I could answer and think of, that if there was a customer service failure, it was on the technical side, not on the human side. So.
Yeah. Okay, so what was your question? It was what are you doing to prepare for the
Yeah,
World Cup?
World Cup in summer of 2026. Yeah.
Doing to prepare for the World Cup in 2026.
And if I can take your opportunity, if they're watching in Kansas City, because I worked closely with Johnson County Parks and Recreation in putting together, or helping them put together some of the fun things they would, because they have a great complex. They have outdoor amphitheater and all that. So they're doing some fun things, and just wanted to say hello to them. So if they're watching, all the best, in Kansas City. Kansas City has got some big games coming up this year for the World Cup. So
Yeah, well, I've got the director, Justin, um, the director of Atlanta. He's a good
oh
friend of
yeah,
mine.
Justin Cutler. He's a good friend of
Yeah.
mine. Say hello to him too. So
Yeah, we talk all the time. So he's a fellow Bitcoiner, and we're always like trading information. He's also
yeah.
kind of like a philosopher. We both listen to a bunch of, what's the philosopher we always share? Oh my gosh, it just flew out. Alan Watts is another one
Oh,
that we
okay.
follow. So we're connected on like 3 different ways. But then I'm also interviewing Renee Johnson, and she's the director over at City of Dallas. So those are 2 cities. Maybe I can get
Yep.
and see what they're doing,
No, that
because
would be
they're both
awesome. Yeah, and they
cool
both
cities.
have awesome stadiums too. Because Atlanta has the covered stadium, same with Dallas has the covered stadium. That'll be interesting. That if it gets really hot, or I'm assuming it'll be hot in the summer, so they'll have it covered anyway. So yeah.
Yeah. Now, how do you know Justin? Just through
Oh,
Parks and Rec?
no, I mean, hopefully he wouldn't mind me sharing. But when I was a regional director in Portland in 2004 through 8, he actually was our intern way back. So in
No
2004.
way.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna text him as soon as I get off, because that's right, because he's from that part of the country.
Yes, he's from Oregon, Washington State, actually. Yeah, so
Yeah.
he went to school in that area, and he was our intern. We kind of hit it off. We had similar philosophies in Parks and Recreation. We've stayed in touch, and not
Yeah.
to make him feel bad, but we also competed for the same job a couple of times, which I ended up getting one time. And so he was in the neighboring city, and then he got the opportunity to go to Seattle as a recreation superintendent, which was huge. Huge city, huge job. It's a fun job, fun city. And then he ended up in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I think I remember clearly too. He called me to say, like, Seve, what do you think? You've worked for big cities, mayors, and all that. This will be a job reporting to the mayor of Atlanta. I said, just be ready that when the mayor changes, your position could change. So just be aware. But sounds like he's doing well
Yeah.
there. So all power to him. He's a good guy, and I've enjoyed my conversations with him. The last time I chatted in person was at the 2019 conference, right before COVID, in Baltimore. So yeah, do say
Yeah.
hello to him. He's awesome. So
Yeah. We communicate regularly. I'll mention him for sure. That's gonna be great. Maybe we can find a way to do a few things together for the Daily Parks and Rec show.
no, absolutely, yeah. No, actually, if you're really thinking about it, the three of us could do like a talk around, or like a.
Yeah. Oh, let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, I'll mention it to him. I want to say he's coming on the show for his first exclusive interview. Now, he did, when I went to Georgia, we had like a
Yep.
little 10, 15 minute, whatever. But he is coming on. Let's see. Hold on. I think it's going to be, is it in January? Or it might be in December. It is December 22nd. So right before Christmas.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. No, that's great. And actually, the one other kudos to him. Also, he started off this group called Rec RX America, or Rec RX. The idea was, again, to be out there recreating, or being active in sports and being outside. That would make you healthier and overall, fix daily ailments. Because I've worked with a group called Park RX America, and his was the Rec. So we have similar, again, viewpoints of how Parks and Recreation can help influence day-to-day life.
Oh yeah, well, we're definitely gonna have to do a show with both of y'all. That would be fun.
Yeah.
I'll just be like a fly on the wall watching y'all two just jam.
Yeah, well, be ready to talk about the old days in Oregon too, because he had a long stay in Oregon. I did too, so
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, this has been such a great show. Thank you so much for coming up with the idea of making it all about, the World Cup. That's going to be a big deal for the next year. And then we'll have to, I don't know, are we scheduled for another one? We should do one
Yeah,
at
what I
least every
did was, so I scheduled one right before the Super Bowl because we're hosting the Super Bowl here in San Francisco. So,
Yes.
I mentioned the Bay Area Host Committee. We're working with them. Actually, the NBC studio will be on our property at the Gardens, so you'll get to see Yerba Buena Gardens during the 2 weeks of the build up to the Super Bowl. So keep that in mind
Oh,
too. If you hear the
fantastic.
name Yerba Buena Gardens, that's us here in San Francisco, downtown during the Super Bowl on the first weekend in February. So, yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Last thing. So we hired Sherry has been connecting us with everyone in Parks and Rec, and we're just completely overwhelming her. So we finally picked a team member that's we just recently hired over the weekend, another full-time Daily Parks and Rec show team member that is just going to be doing nothing but helping Sherry with the booking, the networking, the scheduling, all that kind of stuff. And so I asked Sherry to connect Eunice with you.
Yep.
Just I tried to pick like my top 20 people that are really engaged in the show, and so you were one of them. So you'll probably be getting hit up to connect with
No
you.
worries. Happy to help, as you know. So, yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Seve.
Yeah. No. Take care and best for the holidays, and we'll see you in the new year. So.
Sounds like a plan. Have an awesome week.
Bye. Take care. Bye.
Yeah. All right, man. What a great show. That was all Seve's idea about talking about the World Cup and, what soccer is to the rest of the planet. I know in America, it's not as, we've got so many other sports, but for the rest of the world, football, as they call it, is it's a big deal. And like you said, it's once in a generation. Probably won't come back to America till the 2050. So it's going to be another 25 years before we see it again. So it's a big deal. And we've actually got a couple of guests that are coming on the show that they're host cities, Atlanta and Dallas. So we'll have to get them to talk about it. Justin, if you're listening, Seve, I didn't realize y'all were that connected. We need to have both y'all on at the same time. I think that would be cool. And as I said before, we recently added someone that can help with booking and scheduling and networking, because it's just, getting everybody booked for their 30-minute show prep calls, reaching out to the people that y'all recommend that we should also get onto the show has just become more than one single full-time job. So we've doubled the manpower just on the networking, the booking, that kind of stuff, connecting us to the world of Parks and Recreation. So her name is Eunice. Me and Sherry will be reaching out to some of our closest friends of the Daily Parks and Rec show, introducing them to Eunice and asking if there are anyone that you would recommend she reach out to get onto the show. So be looking for that. And we'll be hitting everybody up on LinkedIn and Facebook, pretty much working the network, just to making sure that we're getting the best people, the best programming. And then one of the shows that we really need a lot of help on was superintendents, facilities maintenance people, because we want to start growing that Thursday facilities maintenance show. And that was one place where we were lacking. We just didn't have the booking bandwidth. So hopefully this will solve that problem. One of the things I've been looking to, and we've been needing to do this actually for quite some time, but we're just now getting around to it. So I committed to getting it done before the end of the year. So here we are, a few days before the end of the year. So hopefully everybody's preparing for 2026, wrapping up 2025, but it has just been a blast. Thank you everybody for the love and support. I can't believe it's already been a year. And at the same time, I can't believe it's only been a year. I feel like I've been doing this for a decade, and we just hit the 1 year mark with the Daily Parks and Rec show, but it has been an outstanding year. I had no idea that it would blow up like it has. But if it wasn't for the love and support from guys like Seve and everyone else, I could mention hundreds of people that have supported us from the beginning. We wouldn't be where we are. But really appreciate it. And I need to get Chris, if you're listening to this, we need to make a thank you for 2025 recap of the year, and maybe we can start playing that after Christmas, thanking everybody, and then looking forward to 2026. I think that would be a great promo for us to. And then we've also got quite a few shows that we're launching real time. So we've just got so much stuff happening real time right now. At the end of 2025 and to the start of 2026. So really appreciate all the love and support, guys. Thank y'all so much. Hope you'll have a great Monday and a good start to your week. And I will see y'all here again tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Bye.
At DPRS Media Co., we don't just create content. We elevate community through storytelling. Now, we're proud to introduce the newest addition to the family. Welcome to Youth Sports Mastery, the podcast where champions are shaped, not just on the field, but in life. Hosted by National Academy of Athletics founder Aaron Locks. Youth Sports Mastery dives deep into how youth sports can empower kids, strengthen communities, and build leaders. From coaching culture to recreation strategy, and from player development to parent impact, every episode brings game-ready insight from the people making it happen. Youth Sports Mastery goes live every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics and powered by DPRS Media Co. This is where purpose meets play.
Welcome to DPRS Media Co., the first media company built for the people behind the Parks and Rec community. We don't just cover on Parks and Rec, we elevate it, we amplify it, we honor it. At the heart of everything we do is one mission: to serve the public servants, the professionals who design, maintain, and lead the parks that shape our communities. Under the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we produce 6 powerful platforms. Leadership in Parks and Rec, a spotlight on directors, superintendents, and visionaries shaping the future of public spaces. Facility maintenance, where the boots hit the ground, a deep dive into the systems, crews, and craftsmanship that keep our parks clean, safe, and beautiful. Young Professionals Network, shining a light on the next generation of Parks and Rec. Students, interns, and mentors sharing how we build a legacy together. Youth Sports Mastery, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. This series is for coaches, parents, and rec leaders working to make youth sports fun, fair, and meaningful again. The Rec Room, hosted by the passionate leaders of Henry County Parks and Rec. This show brings frontline energy and real-life stories from the field. And the weekly Parks and Rec Post, our official newsletter delivering stories, insights, and community wins every week. We are DPRS Media Co., LLC, a media company with a mission to uplift the professionals who serve every community, every park, every day.